Hello, Avatar fans, and welcome to the next episode of the Avatar Online podcast. This is going to be episode 223 of our regular shows, and we're recording this on December 13th, 2020. This is the official podcast for the fan site, AvatarTheLastAirbenderOnline.com, and I'm going to be your main host, Morgan Airspeed Prime. Joining me on the podcast is Greg2B from the site.
What's up, everyone?
Excellent. So this is going to be a news-focused show, but we do have some kind of more interesting news to discuss right at the end with a comic announcement and some preview pages. So it's not just sort of random news, but we will start with the kind of, I suppose, less important news and then build up to the big stuff. So the first thing here I want to start off with is just that since the last time we recorded, the Avatar The Last Airbender Deluxe art book and the normal edition, second edition art book have been released. On my YouTube channel, where you're probably watching this podcast, I did put up a review of the deluxe art book. And I just want to talk about it kind of more here, just because it's, it's our first time seeing one of these deluxe books, and the next piece of news relates to the deluxe editions as well. And obviously, if any of you saw my review, you probably know that it was kind of more on the negative side of things with regards to, like, the art book is still good. The new pages are, like, nice, and it's, like, a nicely put together set, but it's not really good value for money. My main recommendation coming out of the review is basically that you should not buy this book for full price. Like, $80 is just far, far too much for this. And even the cheapest online price you can find it for, which is closer to $60, which is what I got it for, still feels like far too much. To me, the most notable thing from the sort of this kind of deluxe re-release, is that the slipcase is very nice to kind of keep the book in. The lithograph is probably the most disappointing part of the set, because the kind of worst fears sort of came true. It is just a very basic art print in a kind of folio kind of fold over thing. There's no art on the folio, and the print itself, while it's decent paper, doesn't feel like high enough quality to justify the price of the set. The new treatment on the cover is just that there's a little bit of foil on the cover, so Aang, his like arrows basically have, silver foiling on it. But considering the overall image, it's very light on the foiling. You do get the ribbon bookmark, but we're not going to give it extra marks for that. And then the new pages ended up just being a lot of what Brian has been posting on his Instagram, the images that he's been selling off for charity, which is nice enough, but it also makes the book feel a little bit weird that it doesn't include stuff like the new art for like the Blu-ray sets, or just extra stuff that has come out that's been official art in the last like 10 years. So it was kind of weird that they went for like really, really recent stuff, in that like the description on the page literally mentions like COVID-19, but then they ignore a lot of other stuff. As a collector, it's still cool, because I think probably the coolest thing about the deluxe set is just that when all of the books come out, it'll make the image on the kind of spines. But like I kind of explained in a lot of detail in the review, it's just like, if you're not a collector, you really don't need the book like at all. But Greg, what have you seen about the Avatar Deluxe set, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I saw your video on it, and I saw some other people talk about it on Reddit and a couple other places, and yeah, it is a bit disappointing for something that seemed like it had a lot of hype behind it, or at least from the way that they were originally talking about it coming out, and sort of the prints that it was going to have. And we were considering what's going to be on the extra pages, since we noticed the page number difference from before. And I don't know, I mean, it definitely seems like it's a nice book, and the extra details that they went to put into it seem like they're nice to have. I don't know, for me it doesn't quite seem like it's quite warrants a full, I don't know, deluxe edition treatment, or at least for the price like we've been saying for what they're going for. That seems a bit of a disappointment to me. I mean, I don't particularly have any interest in getting it just based off of that alone. I like the idea that it does have the whole sort of like case and it's going to all match together, so that'll definitely look good as far as like a pure collector's edition. I mean, I guess if I didn't have the original one, I probably would consider this. But for what it is right now, I don't think that would be enough for me to warrant get this one. I don't know, maybe the other ones might have more stuff in them, or I just like the other books or the other ones that they come out with that might fit more my taste. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's worth the whole set as of now.
Yeah, like for people who don't have the first art book, I think having the option of getting the new standards second edition or the deluxe one is actually much better. But it
Hmm.
feels like they clearly have attempted to market this and as like, if you're a collector who has the first one, you probably should get this one as well. That's where it's not really a particularly good value prospect at all. But yeah, the other news about this is that we, I suppose, could have found out earlier on, but I suppose we kind of missed it until people actually started getting the book. And on the back, you do get a kind of insert that kind of covers the idea of like, this is one of so many books, and when you put the spines of the slipcases together, they'll make a Rava Vatu image. We knew that from before. But if you look at detail at that image of the cases together, you count through them and there's actually 6 of them instead of 5. Whereas it's before we just thought it was okay, one Avatar art book and then the 4 Korra art books. But there's actually 6 deluxe editions listed there, meaning that there's one book that we actually just don't know anything about. And I made a video where I kind of speculated about what it could be, but then I think in one of their uh, Dark Horse streams that they do covering this stuff, someone I think did ask them about this, and they just said that like, yes, that is correct, but we're not ready to talk about it yet. So some sort of a new book is going to be the kind of last part of this deluxe edition set, which kind of has got people a bit excited because like, okay, it's not going to be another Korra art book because there's 4 of them already. Uh, they had a chance to put new stuff in the Avatar art book, so what exactly is this going to be? Now, if it is the last one that they release, this looks like it won't be out until like late 2022 or something like that. So it's going to be a while, I guess, before we find out about it. The only thing I can really think of is that like maybe this is the opportunity for an encyclopedia style book. Otherwise, I actually just don't really have that much of a sense for what this could be. But Greg, what are your thoughts on this mysterious 6th book as part of this overall set?
Yeah, that's quite intriguing. I mean, it's a really long game type of idea. But I guess if you're going to sort of have that design set up, then you have to plan that far in advance. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, would it be like a compilation of things? Could it be the encyclopedia type thing? Could it be like, the Avatar Bible with like some of the like, sort of history? Could it be sort of like, I don't know, like a pre-production book for the actual animated series, like, actual like cells and stuff like what we see on Nick's YouTube and other places where they post sort of like the, sort of how they actually developed the animated show. I mean, I think that would be, kind of interesting if they went along that route, if they had, access to enough materials. I don't know, I guess there's a couple of different things. I mean, I saw some other people, mention it could be, with other stuff that might come out in the future, but that seems like a really long game, and I don't know how much involvement Dark Horse would have in any of that stuff in order to plan that far out in advance. So I don't know. I guess there's a bunch of different things it could be, and yeah, like you said, it is going to be quite a while until we get that. So I mean, I guess this is just sort of super idle early speculation at this point.
Yeah, like unless they do some weird sequencing where it is going to be the 6th book when you like place the image together, but they release it earlier, so it's not necessarily that they just release the image sort of left to right. Like
Hmm.
they don't have to like leave it right until the end, but the fact that we don't know anything about it's kind of interesting. The only other thing I can think of is that like, did they do a art book about the comics specifically, since the comics aren't mentioned in any of the art books? Um, I do wonder like how much extra material they have outside of just what they present in the library editions, but it's an option, I suppose. That could be fun. But yeah, that's just something to look forward to, more of a long-term piece of news. But next we'll move into two pieces of news that are about merchandise, specifically sort of statues and also bookends. So the first one is kind of new. From Dark Horse Direct, there's two bookends here. There's Avatar The Last Airbender, Avatar Aang bookend, and then Legend of Korra, Avatar Korra bookend. So you can buy them separately, or I think you get a slight price reduction if you buy the two of them together. They are pretty fancy, high quality bookends that have the kind of element symbols in sort of stone in the background. There's a base, and then on that base is a statue of Aang on the air scooter, kind of in an Avatar state pose, or in Korra's case, she's doing a kind of water spout style kind of move, and the statues can kind of rotate on the base, so they're not just locked into one position, which is nice to see. And in general, what I saw with these was just that people like the look of them, but that the price is too much. That was pretty much every single comment on my video on this, is that they look really cool, but that is far too much in terms of the price. The other thing, of course, being that all of the images showcase the Earth symbol without the little bit in the middle, and it seems basically complete otherwise, and it seems weird that they leave that out. They confirmed that it will be fixed before it comes out, which is nice to know, but why would you do the full marketing campaign on this before that was fixed? It's kind of a bit weird. I think they also had some issues with, like, they said it would ship to multiple countries, but I think it didn't initially, and then I think it's fixed now. But what are your thoughts on these two bookends?
I mean, the look and the style of them, I definitely like them overall. I think it's pretty cool that we're getting these type of, just merchandise in general, since, that's sort of been the thing, is to not have as much as we would like. So yeah, the look and the style and the feel of them, I think, is pretty cool overall. I know there are some comments about the Korra one specifically, but overall I think it's cool that we're getting them, despite the price being a bit up there for most people.
Yeah, the Aang one I think looks amazing. The Korra one looks good, but I don't particularly like how they did the effect of sort of like her legs kind of not being there in the sort of like water spout thing, in that it's see-through right where like the transition is, and so you can see that like there is no Korra legs here. It's just like her torso up to like her thighs is just like attached onto this water effect part, and that just kind of looks a little bit weird. As well as, like, I suppose just how tall the water spout is. It's kind of like, it feels like it's roughly just Korra standing up, so it kind of gives a weird effect with the sort of scale that they're going for, that like this is Korra technically only really like water spouting like a foot off the ground or something. It's still really nice, and hopefully they can maybe fix it with like the paint not being as kind of transparent or better. But yeah, the main thing I think for a lot of people is just that even if it does ship to your country, it's going to have super high shipping costs, and I think if you buy the two of them together, you only save like $10 or something like that. So it's a pretty high-end product. That's why they're doing it with Dark Horse Direct, because you're getting it straight from them. My understanding is that these won't be sold in any stores or anything like that, so you have to get it from Dark Horse Direct, but it's still cool that it exists. The next thing is from Diamond Select Toys. We have the second Gallery PVC diorama statue announced. So the Aang one has technically released, but I'm not sure how many people have actually got it yet, but I think one or two people have. I haven't got my copy yet, but that is due to be released right now. The second one is Katara. So it's a really cool looking diorama here of Katara, Book 3 Katara, doing some pretty crazy waterbending moves. There's ice in here. It's a pretty dynamic pose. Coming out summer 2021. Same price as the other diorama, $49.99. And for me, the only kind of issue here is just that I think, similar to the Aang one, the only real issue is the face. I think they just made like Katara's face just a little bit too like wide. I think again, similar to the other one, the face is a little bit too angry, I think, with regards to like how kind of aggressive the eyebrows are and stuff like that. I don't really know how much if they're going to change it at all, but I think it's one of the cooler statues that we've ever seen, and I like the price point of $50 for like a decently sized statue. It's not too expensive, but it's not so small that there's no detail to it. So I'm ultimately liking this line, even if there is a few little issues with it. But what are your thoughts on this Katara statue?
Yeah, overall, like you said, the detail that they have in this, especially in the water effect, is definitely really good and probably one of the better ones that I can think of that we've gotten, just in general. Other than like what you said, the sort of face being a little bit too wide or a bit too full in the cheeks. I think, overall for me, the face works pretty well. I don't know, I think the angry or the more sort of like seriousness of her face works better for me in her than it does in Aang. Maybe just because Aang generally has more of a joyful face, and Katara is usually pretty serious when she gets into the water bending. So for me, that doesn't bother me as much. So it's really just sort of the overall shape of the face. But no, I think this is definitely a really cool one. Definitely, this one definitely seems like it's worth your money, if you're able to get it.
Yeah, and I guess it means this is going to be a series, and I guess they'll do at least the main Team Avatar members, and that it seems pretty clear that there's going to be a Toph one with a cool Earth effect, and a Zuko one with a cool Fire effect, and then I guess we'll see what they do with Sokka and potentially Suki. But with how cool the effects are on Aang and Katara, I think the Earth and Fire especially is going to look really, really cool if they get the poses right. So I'm just really, really like this line overall. But I suppose if they do more of these, which kind of character would you be most excited to see?
Oh, I mean, like you just said, any of our core benders, I think would be really cool to see, just because of how much work they seem to be putting into the effect part. I think that's really like the air effect is awesome. The water effect here is cool. So doing that same similar style with fire or earth, I think would be really cool. I mean, I guess I don't know. It's too bad Sokka doesn't have anything sort of like that other than sort of like his accessories. I'm sure they can still do a pretty cool pose, regardless of what it is that they do for him. But that would be, I guess, the only downside of our non-bender team members.
Yeah, like I guess they just had to put him on a pretty cool looking bit of scenery to make up for the lack of the
Hmm.
bending effect. But we'll see what they do. So that's the statue news. We'll move on to the next one, which is Legend of Korra is going to be getting a limited edition steelbook Blu-ray set. So they did this last year for Avatar, which is basically just they did the you get the three steel books. They all have nice new images on the front and back, and they come in a kind of deluxe, kind of cardboard case type thing. Um, I think the main thing we had to say about it again, it's quite expensive for what it is. There's nothing extra on the Blu-ray discs themselves. You're basically paying more than double the price, almost triple the price for fancy packaging and the new art. Uh, it's like limited to 10,000 units, but as far as I'm aware, the Avatar one is still in stock, and I suspect it'll be the same for this. The difference here is, of course, we get four steel books, so we get like kind of extra art here. But it's pretty nice. It's from the same artist again as before, Caleb Thomas, who was handpicked by Brian Konietzko to do this. So on one side you have a kind of Korra from each of the books, book 1, 2, 3, 4. On the other side we get these more sort of different images. You get like Aang giving Korra her bending back. You have Korra getting the sort of vision of herself as the Avatar from book 2. You have Korra and Asami in the spirit portal, and then you have the overall cover image of like Avatar state Korra. Um, I I definitely think sort of similar to the Avatar Deluxe art book. There just needs to be more stuff here as like a collector's item here as a limited edition. I don't think just art on the DVD stuff is kind of enough, and this could do with having like some posters, some art cards, or something like that in it. or something along those lines. But what are your thoughts on Korra getting this Steelbook Blu-ray?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely a really cool one to have. I really do like the art on this one, for sure, and the other insert images are really cool as well. But yeah, I mean, I guess for the price of it and being the full set, is it really worth that? I don't know. It's kind of hit or miss for me, even though Korra is probably the series that I would consider getting this if I had a Blu-ray player, or I just wanted this as a collector item in general. So I don't know. I think it's definitely cool, but if they did have more, if they had, maybe these images as, separate cards that you could pull out and sort of post or collect as well, I think that would be a cool addition, even if it is the same image, just, twice, but you can actually put it somewhere. I think that might make it at least a little bit more worth it.
Yeah, I just think the price is really, really excessive. It's at $97.99 is the retail price. Now, you can, I think, get the Avatar set, given that it's a year old, for like 70, but that still feels like quite a lot, given that you can get the standard Korra on Blu-ray for like somewhere in the region of 25 to 35. I think Avatar is available on Blu-ray for 25 at the moment, and then there is a separate Avatar and Korra Blu-ray set of like both series together that is, I think, standard retail price 70. So they're cheaper to get separately than they are as a duo, but the duo is still cheaper than this set. So I just think like it's really difficult to justify the price, and that like steelbooks, like, do they really cost that much? I get that there's a lot of art on them, but it's like you're paying for just 4 DVD cases basically, and I think that's way too much. So yeah, that's it's coming out March 16th, so it's not too far away. So that's kind of cool. Next up, we get into, I suppose, our big news, which is our 2 pieces of comic news. I'll actually start with the new comic announcement, because I think we'll have probably a little bit more to say about the preview pages. They're probably the slightly bigger piece of news, roughly at the moment. But we at last have our 3rd one-shot Avatar comic revealed. So this is the 3rd part of the Awesome Ladies of Avatar trilogy. We speculated about what character it would be, and I think pretty much everyone had on their short list Suki. It is Suki. The book is going to be called Suki Alone, or should I say Suki, space alone. For some reason, I don't know why they did that. Hollywood Reporter got the exclusive, the late exclusive, as you'd expect, because people found it as a product description first, and we now have the full description. So this book is going to be coming out June 22nd, 2021, so 4 months after the Toph comic, as you would expect. It's the same creative team, Faith Erin Hicks, Peter Wortman, and Adele Matera, with consultation by Tim Hedrick, and the description is: even a Kyoshi warrior can find herself in trouble. Suki is captured by the Fire Nation and brought to the Boiling Rock, a grim prison in the middle of a dormant volcano. Separated from Team Avatar and her Kyoshi warrior sisters, she decides to build her own community among other prisoners, but it's going to take a lot more than an encouraging word to build trust among so many frightened people. Suki will need to draw on all her resources to do it, and even that might not be enough. So there we have the description. And the cover is, of course, Suki in her prison cell, but also, very interestingly, the spirit of Avatar Kyoshi behind her doing the same sort of training strike here. Overall, Greg, what are your thoughts on this announcement of the 3rd one-shot?
It's pretty cool. I think this is what everyone was hoping for, and I guess it's not super surprising that this is what we're actually getting as the story. So the fact that we're getting it, and we sort of I guess Kyoshi in general right now is a very popular character with the books coming out, so it seems like a perfect fit for what they would have coming out.
Mm-hmm. And then the description is kind of interesting in that, obviously, based on the cover, as you'd expect, it's going to be focused on Suki's time in the Boiling Rock before the escape attempt in the Boiling Rock 2-parter. Now, it's kind of an interesting one in the sense that, like, when we meet Suki, it doesn't really seem like she was, like, had a whole group of people that she was with prior to everyone arriving, in that she doesn't mention that like, oh, can we bring my new friend with us or anything like that. So they have to work around that as a sort of, I suppose, continuity type problem. Which is sort of why I think a lot of people, before we had the proper description, were more speculating that because of the Kyoshi on the cover, is this going to be more of like Suki in her cell reflecting on the past? Because when you have the character alone title, it usually suggests flashbacks to some degree. Zuko alone, Korra alone, now Suki alone. Were we going to get her telling another story about Kyoshi? Flashbacks to how she became a Kyoshi warrior, became the leader? Who knows? We could still get that. The description just isn't really leading you down any particular road on where the significance of Kyoshi comes in. So yeah, what are your thoughts on how they're going to actually do this story of like Suki on her own, no other noted characters interacting with other prisoners, knowing what the restrictions are with the episodes that actually take place?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering as well, just because, like you said, there doesn't really feel, from the show that there was any sort of, sense of community as they're mentioning here that, was in the prison. So that'll be interesting to see how they work around that, or if they sort of just try to pull bits and pieces from what we have seen, which I can't think of anything really like along that line. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting story regardless, just because, it seemed like there was a lot of stories that could be told in that prison just from how we know that the prison actually operated. So I definitely see there's definitely potential for a story to be there for sure. It's just, I guess sort of in the grand scheme of things, how is this going to play, into the continuity that we know of at this time, or is it going to at all? Or maybe this is just sort of like, one of those solo pseudo throwaway stories that, just gives us more on Suki, personality as a character overall, but just not, to the whole, I guess, sort of universe. I mean, I guess, the idea of having Kyosho on the front cover, of course, with the books, it means, a lot more than what it might have before. So it'll be interesting to see if they do throw any stories like that into the story. Like I saw some people talking about, like, I don't know, doing some flashbacks or some sort of, something to show their connection in general. I don't know, how much of, if anything, they're really going to put into that part of the story. But I guess there's always room to see how they can put that in there. But no, I think it's definitely has a lot of potential, and just the fact that it's on a character that everyone really likes, but we don't get much of her, I think is just a good thing in general.
Yeah, and then like the I suppose the outsider thought would be like, does the spirit of Kyoshi somehow like appear to Suki to like say something to her? Just because, like, it is glowing kind of like a spirit. And, like, I get it, that's potentially just an effect in the art to get across that it's just, like, the spirit through the generations of, like, the Kyoshi style of training stems through into Suki or whatever. But, there's going to have to be something here. Faith Erin Hicks on Twitter did say something about this. Standalone story focused on Suki during her time at the Boiling Rock Prison. It's very different from the other two standalone comics, filled with emotion and heartbreak. I love it. And then she also said, I got a lovely compliment from Tim Hedrick after finishing the script. I'm literally still glowing from it. So obviously Tim Hedrick really liked what Faith Erin Hicks did in this book. And then it's filled with emotion and heartbreak, which based on the description would have me kind of believing that like she's going to almost like, kind of like Boiling Rock Part 1, build up her own team of like people for maybe an escape attempt. It'll get shut down, and that'll be Suki in the situation that we find her in when Sokka and everyone else arrives. Yeah. Because the only other tie-in to this is that we probably will see a scene with Azula to give the full context to what Azula says to Sokka during the eclipse, that like, my favorite prisoner was always talking about you. She thought you would come and rescue her. So she would have had to have had a scene with Suki where Suki said something about, Sokka will come and get me, or at some point. So maybe Azula returned to the prison, shut down Suki's escape attempt or something like that, and that's why we don't see the other characters with Suki. Suki maybe is a bit lacking in hope going into the Boiling Rock Part 1, and maybe it just gives a little bit of context to like just how happy Suki was to see Sokka. I can maybe see them doing something like that. But what are your thoughts on some of those kind of details of like there's just little tidbits that we have about like Suki, given that like there's like a whole season between her appearances basically.
Yeah, no, I think that breakdown of what could potentially happen was along the lines of what I was thinking, only because that would clear up any sort of, issues of her, needing to reconnect with people or to bring other people with her, during her escape. But it's cool to hear that Tim Hendrick thought that, the story was really good. So that definitely, that's pretty, pretty high praise as far as one of the writers goes. So I don't know. I think it's definitely going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I guess we'll get to see the Warden again as well, which
Mm-hmm.
maybe they might like have some sort of a dynamic with the Warden and Suki, which might add a little bit of extra context to like how awesome it is that she like just captures him on her own, and the whole like nearly punching him in the face when she captures him or something like that. That could be pretty cool. But the main thing with this one is that I've seen so many more websites like Comic Book Resources, the places who didn't get the exclusive, posting about this than I think any of the other one-shots before. The reaction to the video I put up when it was announced, similar. It just seems like the one-shots have like continuously sort of gone up in terms of the hype level. People like Katara, but it definitely wasn't the ideal way to start things off. The Toph comic looks like it's going to be a little bit better than the Katara one, and then this is like, yes, that's exactly what you need. That you can do this with Suki because Suki only has scattered appearances right up until the end, but you don't need to do something like this for one of the main characters when there's so few gaps to actually fill in. So hopefully they take the feedback on board if we're going to be getting a bunch of one-shots as like the next Avatar comics for the next few years. So yeah, there's that. The other thing is that we got preview pages for Toph Beifong's Metal Bending Academy. So the second one-shot. We have 7 preview pages here. It looks like 4 pages in a row, then a break of a bunch of pages, and then 3 pages in a row. I get the impression like we missed the first maybe like 10 or so pages. There's probably a gap of again 10 or so pages in the middle. So this is all still probably within the first half of the book. It's just a little bit spread out. So I suppose let's kind of go through them here. So on the first page, Sokka and Suki have already arrived. They're kind of looking at each other. Sokka says, "So is there a reason why you're acting like things are not fine? Anything we should know?" And Toph says, "It's nothing. Everything's great. The academy's great. The students are great. Everything's just peachy." And Suki says, "But," and she reveals she's bored. So I think the main thing to say about these preview pages is that they hit like almost every beat of the description for this book, like exactly. That Toph is bored with what's going on. She wants excitement in her life. That, we get the details surrounding the reappearance of Chong and the Nomads, and then the underground earthbending tournament isn't quite what we expected, but they hit that all within this preview. Yeah, I suppose just the first page. Any thoughts on what's going on here?
Yeah, no, I think it lines up perfectly. I think they set that up really well. But no, I think it's a nice beginning of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the second page, Toph gives her explanation here. "There's no challenge anymore. The school practically runs itself. My original metal bending students, Hotun, Penga, and the Dark One, teach the beginner classes. I have scouts that search the Earth Kingdom for more metal benders. I have assistants who make sure all the bills are paid. The place is like clockwork. I do the same thing every day. Wake up, eat, teach kids metal bending, go to bed." And there's a little cartoon of her doing just that. She then says, "Sure, everything's going great, but everything could also be going great and also can also be boring. Then it's a good thing we're here to help to shake up your routine. Yeah, are we going on an adventure, some new bad guy whose head needs cracking? Even better, we're taking you to a concert." And Toph's reaction is, "You're what now?" So this is a kind of cool twist to how they're going to introduce Chong and the Nomads, and that they have a concert going on. But there's Toph's explanation for why she's bored, which definitely fits with what we knew. This takes place after the Rift, so I think we knew the general gist of this based off like Hotun Penga and the Dark One being in a sort of higher position in, say, North and South when we see them again. But any thoughts on this second page here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess it shows you how good she is at sort of organizing things, which is neat to see, despite what we typically would think of Toph as a character.
Hmm. Yeah, it just shows how much the school has grown, that she has all these extra people, like scouts and assistants, in addition to her students are now teachers themselves, so that's kind of cool. The third page here is that they're outside a big... Are we meant to know what this building is necessarily? I suppose is my immediate question.
Right.
Because it's hard to tell exactly like where we are. I guess we're like in or around where her students are, that general area. So are we near Yudao, I guess? I'm not entirely sure. So what's great about this concert anyway? Before we met you, Katara Aang and I got stuck in a cave near Omashu. Okay. It turned out the cave was actually a secret tunnel. There was a song about it, sung by a group of wandering musicians who were also trapped in the cave that was actually a secret tunnel. And Suki says, and those same musicians went on to form the most amazing band whose music is taking the Earth Kingdom by storm. And Sokka and I have tickets for us to see them tonight. And she gestures to the audience is actually here outside this building, because they have tickets to see this concert, and we see all the kind of fanboys and fangirls for the Chong and the Nomads out in front. So this all fits really nicely in that, yeah, this happened before Toph was with the group. It obviously isn't an eventful enough thing that they told Toph about it necessarily. I suppose maybe outside of, yeah, we've seen Badger Moles before, but not the context behind it. And then we get that Suki really likes them as well, which will be explored more in the next page. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting just to see how big they've become. I guess that's the biggest thing to me, since it didn't seem like they would become that popular, but I guess you never know.
Mm-hmm. Next, we get Toph saying, you were trapped in a cave with these people, and now you're going to pay money to hear them sing. And Sokka's like, it wasn't my idea. Suki's crazy for their music. I'm just trying to, be supportive, as we see. Suki is in complete fangirl mode here. She really loves them. She knows all of their songs by heart. How many songs do they have? Too many, Toph. Too many. And she says, we've got front row tickets, Toph. You really didn't have to. Seeing Trustfully in Love live is a wonderful experience. I know it'll help shake off your everyday doldrums. And Toph is like, I don't like this at all. I know, buddy. I know. So Sokka and Toph aren't particularly excited about this. Suki is. And it looks like they're basically just about to walk into this place, which I guess is the concert hall where this is taking place. So, yeah, so far this seems like more character development for Suki than anything, which is actually kind of quite good. But what are your thoughts on this page?
Yeah, that is interesting how, I don't know, maybe that's a lead into, just in general, the next book that they have set up. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's nice that they're just there just because they're friends, not because they're necessarily super interested in this group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, next, this is where there's a big cut. Toph says, peace at last, which to me suggests the concert is well over. She's back out. She's happy to not have all that noise going on, and that potentially she didn't enjoy it maybe that much, but we still have to wait and see her reaction to Chong and everyone else. But she's walking through. It's kind of nighttime now, so the concert has obviously happened, and then she gets some seismic sense going on here, and she says, what is that? It's earthbending, but not. And it's really, really interesting, and she kind of runs after it. But yeah, I think the key thing from this is just to remember it's earthbending but not line, and what exactly does it mean. But yeah, the buildings as ever from Peter Wortman look really, really nice. But anything to say about this page?
No, just that it's interesting with this and the next page is how they do this sort of trail for the seismic sense.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we move on to the next page. Toph is running through the town to find where this comes from, and then yeah, like you say, it's the kind of red, almost kind of like lightning pattern almost on the ground that she's following. This is the sense of the sound, the vibrations, and she's following it. So then she comes across this sort of a little bit battered building. This looks like it could be trouble. I'll go around the back. So she hops over the fence and goes in through the hole in the side of the building here to go inside. No, I don't think there's too much to say here. And then the last page of the preview, she walks in and she finds an underground bending tournament. It's not Earth Rumble. It looks like it's just like random people on the ground. There's no real arena to it. It's just a big crowd of people. There's Fire Nation people here, Earth Kingdom people, Water Tribe people. It does look like people are potentially betting on it in the background, and that at the moment it's two firebenders fighting, but there's clearly benders of the main three elements here, and this has Toph very, very, very excited. So yeah, this is a little bit of a surprise. I don't think we quite expected that an underground bending tournament would literally just be sort of people fighting in a random kind of building and not the Earth Rumble stuff. So I guess we won't be seeing the boulder in this book, but there's potential for some new characters here and what they do with this, because it's not people who might recognize Toph. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this final page of the preview?
Yeah, I think this is a great way to end this preview, just with this sort of inclination that there's this underground bending tournament, as she says, going on, and people with different type of bendings fighting against each other. It definitely looks a lot more, I guess, sort of haphazard than what we've seen in the past, or even in the future, I guess you could say. But maybe this is the actual beginnings of something.
Yeah, and this is interesting because Toph wants a challenge, but she's like one of the best earthbenders in the world. So unless Boomy happens to be here, she's not going to have a challenge in this unless there's limitations put on her. So how much fun is she going to have just going in here and taking out everyone that she fights? Which I think potentially leads into what she said from before. It's earthbending, but it's not. Is it just as simple as she senses people bending far away and that it wasn't necessarily earthbending, she just senses people bending? Or the speculation that I saw that I kind of liked from people that would make this book really interesting, is she sensing lava bending for the first time, and that she recognizes that it's earthbending, but it's nothing she's ever sensed before, and her fighting a lava bender would actually be something quite unique, in that I'm guessing this underground tournament is going to have a champion of sorts. That would be cool, but it's maybe a little bit too much to kind of hope for that we get something that cool. I don't know, how much do you read into the it's earthbending but it's not line?
I definitely didn't go as far as lava bending. I was thinking more of the fact that it's different type of benders fighting against each other, and that would be what she's sensing as, earth bending, but not, because, there's, obviously different movements and the different bending practices. So that's sort of how I was taking it. I don't know if she would be, or if you could like tell, detailed enough that there is like restrictions on the actual movements from that far away. I don't know. Maybe her seismic sense is good enough to actually be able to tell that. Because I mean, I would think that there would be some limits that they would have on this, just because of, unless it's really, really like hardcore underground, but just the fact that, the way that they're set up in the picture, they're pretty close to all the people around them, but who knows, this is underground, so it could be anything that goes. I don't know, the idea of lava bending definitely would be cool. That would be a cool matchup to see, but I don't know, it doesn't seem like something to me that they would push for in this type of comic, but I don't know, who knows.
Yeah, this probably is meant to be more of a pro bending arena setup, like early days of that, in the sense that, like you say, there's an arena because there's a crowd of people around, so we're not going to see like final Agni Kai level firebending here. So I guess there's a limitation on like just whatever fire you can generate from a quick punch, and they seem fairly close together. It also seems like the two people fighting are relatively young, so she's maybe just sensing like earthbending done in a style that isn't hers or the typical earthbending style, which is the pro bending quick style,
Hmm.
I guess. The fact that people are betting on it, it's a spectator sport here. I guess it's better when there's limitations and it's not just the most powerful person wins. So that could be enough of a challenge for Toph in that she tends to kind of go big a lot of the times. But a lot of her power also comes from just how kind of clever and subtle she is as well. So this could actually be quite interesting, depending on what way they go with it. I'd almost prefer that her students, Hotun Penga, the Dark One, are the ones maybe who get into the tournament than her. But we'll have to wait and see what exactly happens, because it's kind of hard to connect all the dots in this story. And that, like, is Chong and the Nomads literally just the sort of like start of the story, just to get Toph to eventually come here at the end of it? Are Sokka and Suki going to be in the book for the rest of it, or what? And then, yeah, like there has to be, I suppose, another character on this side of the story. Who is that? And then the other thing is, like, we're obviously waiting for Police Chief Toph. I doubt she's going to want to shut this down immediately, but you'd maybe like to see a hint or two at that. But yeah, I don't know. How do you see this kind of playing out, like, overall, like in terms of like the Chong and the Nomads, Sokka, Suki? How does this all work together in this book?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, we know that Sokka is kind of into these type of things, so I could see him being pretty intrigued by this. I could see Suki being more on sort of the outskirts of being favored, as far as being involved in this sort of underground bending tournament. I mean, I guess I don't know, that whole idea. I mean, is so far that we're always thinking about, Police Chief Toph and sort of how that works. I don't know. I mean, Toph is still really, really young at this time. So, even though we have the whole bending academy and sort of like, early technique hints and stuff like that, I don't know how much stock I would put into her, her official authority that she, gets later on at these sort of early moments here. But I guess who knows? Maybe by the end of this, maybe we'll see something along that lines, or maybe she's the one, that actually organizes this sort of, bending together, or just bending sort of tournament fighting together, along with, what we've seen before from Earth Rumble. I mean, I think that might be a cool thing if they actually sort of show the beginnings of some real organization with, sort of bending fighting. But, that's, again, just sort of like super speculation with what might come in the future. But no, there's definitely a lot of potential here that can be done.
Yeah, the preview definitely has me a little bit more excited to see where exactly they go with it. In that, like, okay, Chong and the Nomads coming back, what's going to be the unique thing with them? Of course, they're going to sing, but now adding that, like, oh, they're like technically, I suppose, the first really popular known music band in the world. Makes you sort of wonder, like, how did this come about? Like, how did Suki first, like, hear them? In that it implies that they've held concerts elsewhere and that Suki has seen them before, to be able to say, like, it's so awesome to see them live. I was kind of wondering, like, does this mean there is actually a way to sort of, like, listen to what people have, like, music when the people aren't there? But I don't think there is, technology wise. I don't think there'd be any sort of like record type thing. So it would have to be she saw them live somewhere. So I don't really know how much we're meant to read into that. In that, like, post-war, there are gaps where, like, Suki could have seen them multiple times and so on. But I suppose, do you have any thoughts on that, of just the how a band comes into being in the world with the level of technology we have?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a good question. I mean, there's been plenty of popular, groups and troops from, way back in the day. So I don't know, the idea of them being, super famous and super popular, that doesn't seem too out there to me. I guess it's interesting to see, just that Suki has, spent enough time, or has been able to see them, at least one other time, with all of, like, the duties and stuff that she's had to do with. So that's just an interesting, I guess, fact in general. I wonder if they'll tell a bit about that. But otherwise, it doesn't seem too odd to me, other than just the fact that that group themselves seems kind of weird. That they're sort of super popular, but who knows? Maybe that's their thing.
Yeah, that could be cool, especially if there's like a new character. Like imagine they had like a manager or something like that, and it's a character we know. It's hard to tell, but it at least seems like there is going to be a whole sequence of seeing them perform. I suppose we'll see how much of a page gap there is between page 4 and 5 of this preview. In that, like, do they get to talk to them backstage? And that, like, they obviously know Sokka really well, and they're going to want to play on the whole, Sokka is like just face palming the whole time with them, and I don't know. I can see them doing the thing of like Suki got Sokka backstage at the Ember Island Players. Maybe Sokka can get Suki backstage or something like that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun, and just to see her kind of freaking out, completely reverse the dynamic. But yeah. This one's definitely fun. Yeah, we're still like 2 months away from it coming out, but once we get through Christmas and stuff like that, it'll be pretty quick, I suppose, by the time all that stuff is done. So yeah, the one shots definitely seem to be like improving over time. I am very interested to see where they go with like the next one in terms of like, are we keeping the same creative team? We're obviously moving away from, I guess, the theme of just it being the female character trilogy, so we can open that up a little bit more. I don't think these one shots necessarily have to be just about one specific character, so I don't think we'll go straight into like, oh, all male character or anything like that. There's I think room for stuff to happen, and I think something like the Suki one maybe opens the door to, yeah, like an Iroh one of these would be something that again will get people really excited, and it kind of feels like, okay, if you're willing to fill in the gap on Suki, why not do the same with Iroh, just to have it be a bit more of a direct flashback type thing. If we can't advance the story post imbalance, can we do that? But yeah, I suppose now that we have the first full one-shot trilogy, where do you think this means we can go with future one-shots?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the idea of Iroh, I think, is definitely a cool one. Although that seems like a big task to sort of take in, depending on where they were to place sort of like his solo story. If it's just him sort of like post everything in the series. I mean, there could be potential there just to see how he's working in, sort of the Fire Nation with Zuko. I mean, that could be interesting. I mean, it may not be sort of the cool backstory from when he was younger that, everyone really wants, but that might be more approachable. But as far as general stories, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess any sort of, combination of characters could work at this point as far as, having them in groups together, just from everything that we've seen so far. So I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a lot of options that they have if they're going to go with these sort of solo format books for the future currently.
Yeah, like I can definitely see if they do an Iroh one. Like, okay, at this point, I really think it probably won't be just like full everything about Iroh's backstory. But if they just choose a more specific part of like, okay, we're not going to do the spirit world journey, but why don't we cover, say, him meeting the ancient sun warriors? Like, how did that go down? And you could maybe have a side plot be Zuko with the dragon egg. That would be a very kind of thematic one. If he's interacting with like Sokka or Katara, he could tell the story of like how he studied waterbenders to learn lightning redirection. That's a more focused Iroh backstory where, it's just him interacting with some of the characters he doesn't interact with too much and a little bit of extra. But I guess they probably will do something more along these lines of like they'll do like a Zuko one, an Aang one, and then, or will they do Aang? It'll probably be like Zuko, Sokka, and then kind of a minor male character, which is, it's probably harder to actually pick out one of them than on the female character side of things. But yeah, we have to wait and see on that. But yeah, we're still waiting for like other announcements as well. I'm almost surprised that we got this before the Korra comic announcement. I'm guessing in the next couple of weeks we'll find out about the Smoke and Shadow Omnibus edition that seems like it's going to be out in or around the same time as this book, this Suki Alone. And then, given that this sort of covers, I guess, books up until like June, July, I really think at this point you have to have the first Korra comic out in or around like August, September, October. So within the next 3 months, I think you have to announce the next Korra comic. At least that's what I really feel they have to do now. Given how much they've teased it basically since March. They have to finally commit to that. But what are your thoughts on that? Just where the Dark Horse release schedule is at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, no, we're getting stuff for Avatar, which is really cool, and it seems like that's pretty well planned out, as well as, a couple other things. I guess it really is, like you said, it's really just the Korra stuff that we're still waiting for them to confirm what it is or how they're going to set it up, going forward, which definitely seems like they're taking maybe a longer time than normal with getting this announcement out. I don't know, maybe there's a really good reason for that.
Yeah, like it probably, like if they do have to change creative team, that would explain the longer delay. But again, we don't know either way what the situation is there. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, we're getting our last bits of information. I really do think probably next week is the last week this year. We probably will get news before we get into the whole Christmas, New Year's kind of time period. So if anything else happens this year, it probably will be in the next few days. But yeah, that's all the news that we have at the moment. The next podcast, we'll see what news comes out, and that's kind of the way we're kind of doing the podcast at the moment, just reacting to what news there is that actually comes out. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this week's podcast. It's been myself and Greg. Thanks for listening, and bye.
Bye bye.